Hey, everybody, welcome to the Broker Collective podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Malone, president at HRO and the Broker Collective. Really excited about this one today. You know, the timing works out really well, too. I know by the time this goes live, it won't be the day, but today is the day. It's the first regular season football game of the season. I'm excited to talk about business development and recruiting, and today I've got Christopher Carter joining us. He actually started as a free safety for 6 years in the NFL. Some great stories to be told today, I'm sure, by Chris. Thanks for jumping on with us today, man. How's it going?
It's going great. Appreciate you for having me, Marcus.
Absolutely. Yeah, looking forward to talking about this, man. It's kind of a topic that I've been passionate about for years. I mean, I grew up playing sports my whole life, football, baseball, basketball, you name it. Always been an athlete. Golf is about the peak of it these days. We've had some times on the golf course together for sure. But something that I've always been passionate about is the value of athletes and business development. I mean, you look across the landscape and there's so many, former athletes that go on to have tremendous success. A lot of pro athletes go on to have tremendous success in sales and in leadership. So excited to kind of hear your take on that, your experience, as you've kind of made that transition from the NFL to, a couple decades now in sales and business development. I know you and I got started together, or I started and you were already in it, but we worked together for many years at a large PEO early on and got to know each other, got to see your work ethic and work alongside you and hear some of these stories. But just tell us a little bit about, I guess, you spent 6 years in the NFL, 3 teams, you made the transition into sales and now business ownership. Tell me a little bit about, like, how did that happen? I mean, how did you end up in a sales position after you?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The winds of change, right? Life. Where does it take you? It's kind of really interesting. I was literally met my future wife in college, University of Texas. I was pre-med, she was pre-med, so we were taking a lot of science courses, chemistry, biology, some of the other items, and we ended up meeting each other there. And I really thought my path for life would be becoming a doctor. Um, Life would have it. Some people thought that I was pretty good playing sports, and they decided to offer me, some money to go play sports. And that's literally what I did. So I went out, just like you mentioned, spent 6 years in NFL, 3 years with New England, 2 years with Cincinnati, and my final year with the Texans, and had a ball, literally had a ball. However, my attraction to business, my attraction to healthcare, my attraction to the different side of life other than sports never really stopped. While I was in New England, I actually founded a company. I was a partner with a staffing firm, medical staffing firm. So what we did was we did nurses, we did docs, travel nurses, PRN, and really my partners did an excellent job with helping us build that business. The business is still running strong now. And so that was kind of one of the first iterations of jumping back at the business realm. Also, while I'd done that, while I was still playing, which is actually a cautionary tale, I started a gym. Started a gym, Midland, Texas. I mean, it was awesome. This was before the 24-hour fitnesses blew up across the country. Yep. We were actually one of the first licensed CrossFit gyms in the state. This was many moons ago, almost 20 some odd years ago, 27, 28 years ago. Yeah, a long time ago. So started a gym. However, unlike what had happened with with the staffing agency in my gym, I actually hired extremely poorly. My manager that I had hired that was working for us there was really not the best hire for us. That, of course, ended up being kind of the downfall of that relationship there. But anyway, so getting back into business was already part of what I was doing. So there are many athletes that play, that are in the NFL, Major League Baseball, professional hockey, and they actually have, which is kind of cool, a hobby that they own a business, or they're running a business, or they're actually a partner in another organization. So it's not it's not just me. I'm not unique in that regard. There are actually many athletes that do that. But in so doing, what I was doing was also building a career after football in my
Yeah.
case. And so what happened to transition for me in sales, as you know, owning a business, being young, it takes a lot of your time.
Yeah.
I wasn't married at the time, but as I mentioned to you, my soon-to-be wife, she was a doctor. She was spending a lot of time, and we wanted to spend some time together. And I needed to make a sacrifice. And for me, that meant moving from where I was to where she was, and start taking on a less time-consuming role. And that's how I jumped into the PEO space. That's where you and I met.
Yep.
But that's what we were doing there. So I was raising a family, wanted to have kids. So we were just starting to, have our youngest ones now who they're what, juniors, seniors in high school now. That's crazy.
That is
Time
nuts.
has flied. But that's actually how I transitioned from football to being in the business world. So the transition was already occurring kind of behind the scenes. And then it kind of just morphed into that full
Yeah.
transition of being in the
Well,
business
and kind of
world.
what you were doing with the businesses that you started, especially on the staffing side, I mean, kind of flowed right into what you did in the PEO space, and now in the insurance space with your benefits firm, which is kind of why we're here today. And our audience here is really insurance brokers. So excited to talk about this. And we've been at some events recently, and kind of a trend we've been hearing out there across the insurance space is that a lot of agencies are really they're having a tough time recruiting, right? They're having a hard time finding good people, good producers. And so I thought, what a great time to talk to, a former pro athlete who's had a ton of success in business development and now in the insurance space, running your own company. It just made perfect sense. I mean, to me, there's always been so many skills and just things that translate so well from that competitive mindset of an athlete to what it takes to be successful in a sales role. I mean, you really have to be ultra competitive, and you got to be on it all the time to continue to produce at a high level. And so interested to kind of, as we go through this, get your thoughts on some of the things that you see from your experience that have really impacted you and made you successful in sales. But you came into the league right out of the gate. You were in New England, one of my favorite teams for years. I mean, I was a big Tom Brady fan. I think, was Brady, or was he, were you last year there? Wasn't Brady maybe coming in when you were heading out, something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Brady
I
was
mean, a
just
lot of
coming
people don't
in.
remember, but that story about Brady is actually true. I mean, Brady was literally, he was, I mean, inches away from being released from New England. He didn't
Crazy.
even, the last couple of preseason games, he wasn't even on the field.
That's amazing.
You guys might remember there's a former, well, not necessarily Houstonian, but everybody remembers Michael Bishop. So
Yeah,
he actually hails from right a little bit north of
from Willis,
Conroe.
right?
That's actually where he's from. But Michael Bishop was the quarterback at Kansas State. Michael
Yeah.
Bishop was literally winning that position over Brady. And at the last minute, they chose to, I say leadership in New England chose to go with Brady. Now, granted, what we have like 4 or 5 Super Bowls later, it looks like a great choice in their regard. But yeah, I mean,
That's
Tom
cool.
was literally very close to not making the team. That's very interesting. Yeah,
I didn't, and I did not even know that. So Mike Bishop is from Willis, Texas, I believe. So
he's
Mike
from
is from
Willis,
Willis. So I
exactly.
know Mike personally. So, and I did not know you knew Mike. That's crazy. I didn't
Yeah,
realize
yeah. Me and
that.
Michael go
So,
way back to
dude.
the end. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, back when I was still, Mike several years, probably, a decade, graduated maybe a decade before I did. Maybe not that far. I'm 39. So Mike, so a lot of the guys, I grew up in Cold Springs, not too
Right.
far from Willis, and we knew a bunch of the Willis guys. Actually, one of my lifelong friends who also went on to play in the NFL is how I met my wife. So D.D. Terry, he ended up
Yep.
transferring from Cold Springs and went to Willis, but him and
Mm.
a bunch of those guys were training and working out a lot with Mike. And so, I knew Mike a little bit, I knew of Mike during those times, but that's pretty cool to hear that story, man. I didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah. That's actually very
that. And
Mike had a
so,
cannon. Mike had an absolute cannon. He could throw. I mean, literally,
yeah,
every to be honest, everybody actually thought that he was going to be the one that they kept. It didn't happen that way. Me and Mike still talk about it now. I think they might even be doing like an ESPN 30 for 30 on it, like really putting out, because
So you
there's a
still
lot
talking
that went
about
on
that?
within that. I mean, it was that much of a groundbreaking decision of kind of which way they were going to go with that.
That is cool, man. Yeah, I didn't. So you still in touch with Mike Bishop a little bit?
Exactly,
So
exactly.
you
I
don't
talked to Mike
know.
not too long, actually, just a couple of weeks ago.
You know DD
He
Terry.
actually founded a school. He's one
Yeah.
of the co-founders of a private school up north. Hopefully, I'm getting that right. But I just talked to him not too long ago. We were talking about the school that he's at
That's
now.
cool.
So anyway, yeah, that's. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were talking. We were watching my kids play, and we were talking
It's
about
a
it. So
small
yeah,
world, man. It's a small world. So when you came
definitely a
into
small world.
Cleveland, so I forget Belichick was not there yet. It was Pete Carroll, right?
No, Belichick was there. That was the first year of Belichick. Yeah.
Okay, Belichick's first year.
So
That's right.
Pete Carroll's last year, and then Belichick's first year was the year that I was actually leaving. And I
Got
went
it.
from New England to Cincinnati.
That's right. I got it. That's awesome. So it's 3 teams. So I mean, were there anything? I mean, those are something. I mean, obviously legendary coaches. You talk about Pete Carroll and Belichick. I mean, for the time that you played there and were rolled up under Belichick, I mean, are there things that you feel like you learn kind of through that experience that translate to your business success now?
Oh, without a doubt. I can actually tell you from pretty much the majority of the coaches, and I'll go through the ones you just mentioned with both Pete Carroll and Belichick. Pete Carroll is literally I'd say he embodies competition.
Yeah.
It is nonstop. He preaches it, teaches it, and talks about it all the time. He loves it. He actually, even I'm thinking he's what, 70 plus right now. I
Yeah.
know exactly what he's doing in the film room when he sees and he's going through the films with the players. He's talking about, this is how you compete. This is what we're talking about. And whether it's practice, games, I mean, he really, really, truly just preaches it and embodies that, where you get an understanding that life is extremely fun when you're bringing out the best in everyone. So
Yeah.
one of the lifelong lessons that, even though we were already in an environment where we're going to compete all the time, hearing someone audibly continually teach and preach that while you're doing it, it kind of leaves a more of an impression of exactly what you're doing while you're doing. So he basically labels that and gives you an understanding. This is what we're doing, and it actually makes sense from a business standpoint, because at what point in your life do you not want to be competing?
Yeah.
I can't think of any. Like, you want to be the best. I literally can't think
Yes.
of any. Like, I really want to be I want to be the best husband. I want to be the best father. I want to be the best at what I'm doing with my job. I want to be able to be the best friend that I can to all of my colleagues. I want to be the best coworker. I want to be there, and basically when you're using terms like best or even getting better, whether you're competing with someone else or whether you're competing with yourself to be the best version of yourself, that's literally the best form that you can actually present. And so you are competing. And so to hear Pete Carroll mention that, it kind of puts a label, kind of puts a bow on top of what you really want out of life. So that's one life lesson that I received.
Absolutely.
Belichick is different. And I say different in that he is one of the most studious coaches I've ever had in my life. Like, literally everything to a T had to be diagrammed, charted. I know I've mentioned this to you before. Being a safety, we had to study the quarterbacks, kind of their reads, and we also had to study the wide receivers. We literally had to write a book report from the teams that we were going to play, and literally that's what it was called. We had a book report that we had to deliver to say it, and we actually delivered it to the rest of the team in terms of our study of the quarterback. Since I was the safeties, the cornerbacks had to do so based on their receiver matchups that they were going to do. The D line would do it for their offensive line. So literally a book report to talk about, this is what his read would be. This is how many steps he takes in this drop. When he does his fake, when they're doing fakes, this is kind of how he carries out his fakes. Extreme studying at that level. And so a lot of people don't think that you're actually studying or in classroom behavior when you're talking about sports. It's actually the opposite. In the NFL, you're actually only on the field for literally maybe an hour, 2 hours each day. The rest of the day is spent in classroom work. You're studying film, you're going through book reports, you're actually looking at tendencies. You're looking at your plays versus theirs. When I tell you, you get up in the morning, you're at the field, you're at the facility around 7, and you don't leave till about 6 or 7 at night, but you're only on the field practicing about 2 hours. That gives you an understanding that the majority of your day, 6 to 7 hours a day, is spent studying, being studious in terms of understanding what's going on. And that's how I really, really gained an appreciation to be the best at what you want to. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to understand. You have to see tendencies. You have to see trends, and you have to be able to understand what those mean. And so, taking that into the business world, that's to be a pro. To be the best of what you do, you literally have to be that. And also to be a pro at what you're doing in life, you really have to understand. You have to study. You have to have an understanding of your market, an understanding of the people that you're looking at in terms of talking to, an understanding of your business. What are you actually bringing? Are you really bringing value? Do you really understand that value that you're bringing? You have to know those things. So yeah, those two things are really big things that I took from my NFL life to now.
That's amazing. Yeah, man. I mean, just the concept of always competing, right? I mean, I've been such a big believer of that forever in sales. And I mean, I've been blessed in my sales career and on into leadership, at an early age. But I mean, I attribute a lot. I mean, I see a lot of the similarities, a lot of the same, components of the mindset that it took to succeed in sports. It takes those same components to succeed at a high level, in sales and in leadership. I mean, a lot of similarities for sure. I mean, you're always competing, right? You have to always be competing in the preparation. I mean, I just thinking about the success that I've been blessed with and even having today. I mean, so much of it is, you talk about the preparation and the knowledge that it takes. I mean, you look across it, we've worked alongside of hundreds of salespeople probably at this point over the years. And you see what makes a lot of the top performers different and the knowledge that they have. And I mean, I've made it a point to gain this knowledge over the years, but the knowledge that you have about your industry, the knowledge that you have about your competition is critical to be able to go in there and not bash the competition, but know how to strategically position yourself.
Right.
To bring an advantage to the table and to create that advantage. So yeah, man, I'm glad that you shared that. 3 different teams that you play for, 6 years, man. I mean, I'm imagining there's probably all kinds of crazy stories, but are there maybe some moments from those playing days that, maybe 1 or 2 of those, stories that stand out the most that you might be able to share with us from your time, playing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually have a number of stories. There's tons of stories, to be honest. Just if we're just looking at on the field type stories and having conversations about those, I got my first sack against Steve Young. That was actually really cool. I remember talking about.
That's cool.
But you really remember being a safety, and I was telling you again how we competed. Literally, the safety is kind of the quarterback of the defense, and the quarterback is kind of the quarterback of the offense. And literally, it's a mind game. You're really trying to be there. And every time you see a quarterback, if they're looking off or they're really doing that to try to move the safeties. They're trying to maneuver them because they understand that the safeties are reading them. So my job, of course, was to be knowledgeable, but also, at the most point, read the quarterbacks, put the team in the right coverages based on formations, but also read the quarterbacks, try to figure out what they're doing and make the adjustment for that. So I guess, again, you and I have had this conversation before. I know we brought it up, but one of the coolest things about doing so is you find out certain quarterbacks really they're not all the same. Some quarterbacks you can actually get in their heads. You can actually figure out what they're doing. Other quarterbacks want you to try to get in your head because once you are in their head, they're actually in yours. And I actually I make this. I make this analogy, or I make this story because I really love it. It's just really cool to me, and I still see it in my head. It was a Sunday night game playing against Green Bay, and in that game, just like I always do. I'm trying to get in the quarterback's head. This quarterback happened to be Brett Favre. And Brett was one of those quarterbacks that really he loved that mind game. He loved that aspect. And for what we were talking about before, he was an ultimate competitor. He was the quarterback that if you talk to him, he was going to talk back. Many quarterbacks didn't do that. He was going to trash talk you. You're going to trash talk him, and it was really a good cat and mouse competition. Well, this Sunday night game, Brett Favre had Mark Chimera, who was his all-pro tight end. And on this coverage, my job was to make sure that, Mark Chimera that was running up the seam, that I was going to be able to, take care of him. Brett Favre did what he did, dropped back, looked at me, and I saw he look at me, and he knew I had Chimera covered. Of course, he had a little time, and so since he had a little time in the pocket this time, he decided that he was going to play with me a little bit, and that he actually looked off, and he looked off so long, and I was so close to Chimera that I was like, I know he's not coming back throwing this ball here. I just absolutely knew it. I literally took one step away from it.
Damn.
And as you all remember, Brett Favre had a cannon for him. He did have a cannon. He
Yeah.
gunned it in. Mark Chimera caught it. First down, they were in the red zone, and I was absolutely pissed. It's like, man, I was like, so we go back up to the line. The next play is getting ready to start. Brett comes to the line, again, coming back to that head game thing, and he looks at me and he says, I got you that time, didn't I?
Oh, that's hilarious, man.
And so we talk about competition. We talk about being studious. We talk about all those understandings. He wasn't able to do that the rest of the game, but without a doubt, those type of individuals from a sales perspective, the ones that in the moment, in the crutch of, you guys, you've been there. I've been there. There have been times when you've sat across from a business owner, sat in a meeting with the board, or sat in a meeting that actually had some critical play on what you and your company were trying to accomplish, whether it was a new account or not. And there was a situation where the CEO or the CFO or board member said something to you that could easily have gotten you off your game, could easily have gotten you rambling about your products, features, benefits, going on this tangent. Easily could have done that. But those sales reps that are really good at that competitive piece, they love those moments because they know those are critical moments for them. We're talking about sales and sales brokers. We're talking about agents. We're talking about all of us that actually work in a business environment. You know when those moments happen. And when that happens, in the back of your mind, you're like, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
But those that have not been in that competitive situation, they kind of move a little faster than they should be moving. And that's when they start talking too much versus answering and asking questions. You know what I'm talking about, Marcus, because you've been in those situations
it's an opportunity to turn that situation.
It's an absolute opportunity. That's exactly where you want to be.
Yes.
But if you're not used to that competition, if you're not used to those moments, you see that as a negative. You see that as, oh, he's challenging me, or you see that as, oh, I'm about to lose this. No, you're exactly where you want to be. You're exactly the moment you should be. And now those that are seasoned, those that actually are used to that competition, realize that, and they're able to respond. And that's what changes the meeting. That's what gets your team, your company, your agency, the deal, or your new client. That's what brings that about. So
that's it. It's an opportunity, man. I can picture myself right now in some of those moments you're talking about.
Right.
And sometimes you're in those situations, and maybe you got multiple executives in the meeting, and maybe you have one person in there who's really just trying to throw a wrench in everything because they're clear about it. They don't want to make a change from whatever it is, and so it doesn't matter what you bring to the table, they're coming at you, and so you got to be able to learn how to navigate that conversation and keep your composure and use it to your advantage. And there's absolute opportunities. But just kind of curious to hear, from all the experience, as an athlete and at that pro level, and then, your career path now. I mean, what are maybe some of the top 1 or 2 traits that you feel translate the best into making, a former athlete of that caliber, of your caliber, into a successful, salesperson or business leader?
Yeah. And I actually think we touched on 2 of the top ones, to be honest. One thing that because we're actually in hiring mode now at Beneloyal Health. So we're already, so we're, the things that I'm mentioning are things that we look for, on things that we are looking for right now as we bring on new representatives to our team as well. Number one, we actually like those that have actually had a little struggle, a little competition. Yeah. One thing about this, when we talk about translating from sports to the business world, is you can't be at a professional level without having gone through some stuff. So, and that's period, point blank. To make it to that level, you've gone through some things, whether that's from a training standpoint, whether that's from a coaching standpoint, whether that's from a just from an understanding and life standpoint. For example, many people don't know this as well. In all of other professional athletics, you're able to typically go from high school to the pros. Yep. But in an NFL, you have to spend 3 years in college before you can go to the NFL. So think about playing a high level of ball while also making sure that you're in school for 3 full years. You have to pass. Now, granted, in the past, there have been those that are probably, maybe got some favors from some teachers or that, but the majority of them, I can name a number of Rhodes Scholars. I can name a number of those that are on the Dean's List. Those individuals recognize the determination and the dedication it takes to be at the top of their game. That's one thing I look for. I look for those that have actually kind of gone through some things, and they kind of understand that, it's a struggle. Life is not all peaches and cream, which is fine, because you gotta have, I mean, without the struggles, there are no celebrations. There literally aren't. I mean, you have to overcome something to be able to celebrate something. So that's one of the things that we actually like to look for. The other thing is kind of what we just talked about earlier, that competition piece. Yeah. We want somebody to come in and say, hey, I might not be the best right now. I might not be even the best in this agency. I might not have all the knowledge, but I am going to get it because I need it. I need that. I need the knowledge. I need the at-bats. I need the attempts. I need to go out and talk to people. That competition that just it's indwelling. It's within them that they want to make it happen. It's just a part of them. So that's another thing that we look for. Yeah. That last piece, again, we touched on the 2 top highlights that I mentioned about Bill Belichick. We want somebody to be a student of the game. We really want somebody that embraces knowledge, embraces understanding, embraces training. I have had a lot of coaches, and many of those coaches are completely different than each other. However, I've been able to have success with all those coaches because once you understand that the training in and of itself is going to benefit you and going to benefit the team, and you embrace it and you just take it on, you yourself become better. And so those that are not just willing to be trained, but want the training, actually look forward to, hey, can you tell me about this? They're questioning, they're bringing out questions all the time. Those are the ones that I really want to talk to. Yeah. Because also, those are the individuals, when they sit across from an account, from a client, from a board member, from a president, they'll do the same thing because they'll really, really want to know about that person. And that's how you'll tie those things in. So those are the 3 qualities that I look for. And without a doubt, they are definitely attributable to athletics.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Now, this is huge, man. I mean, hopefully the audience feels the same. I mean, I think these are things, if you're in a position where, you're running an organization, you're trying to build out that sales team, maybe you're struggling with business development. I mean, obviously there's a lot of criteria out there that go into, what makes a high performing salesperson, but athletes, man, I think it's one of the first places I always turn, when it comes to recruiting athletes, former military, somebody who's been in a position where they had to compete, somebody that has that drive and that desire to always compete, to always want to be reaching that next level. And like you said, I think that was the way you said it was great, but the action, not just willingness to learn, but the want to. They want to learn, they want to know more. That's important. I mean, I think about, how I go in and position myself and separate, what we're bringing to the table and create value for HRO, above, ADP or Paychex or whoever it may be. I mean, a lot of it is exactly that. I want to know about the prospect. I want to know what their challenges are, what matters to them, what's important to them, right? If I can understand what they care about, then I can build a solution that really taps into what matters most to them, not what I see as maybe the most important issue. You got to have that buy-in from the prospect. Just because you see it as a problem, it doesn't mean that they do, right? And so it's
Exactly.
important to listen and to learn and to always be wanting that knowledge. And that's what keeps somebody, I think, continuously growing and improving and increasing. And they're less likely to fall off too, right? And to kind of hit a rut and kind of,
Right.
you might have that willingness to learn, but you might hit burnout in 2 or 3 years, and now your mindset changes, and you don't have that willingness so much anymore. Versus somebody who you want to be the best. I mean, we're 4.9 stars on Google right now. We want to be 5. Like, what do we got to do to get that extra 0.1?
Congrats on that, by the way.
Yeah, man. So no, I appreciate it. This was great, man. I appreciate everything you shared with us. I think it's super valuable to the audience here today. And congrats to you, man, on the success that you've had. I mean, I had the chance to work alongside you for years, and it was I saw it firsthand, man. I mean, the mindset you bring to the table, the attitude, the positivity, the energy, that desire to always compete. I mean, it's absolutely there. You can see it and feel it, and I think it radiates to others around you too, which is also important. So congrats on your business now. And that's really going to do it for today's episode. And before we jump off though, Chris, I do want to give you the opportunity to kind of tell the audience really, where can they find you, Beneloyal Health? Where can they find you guys and learn more about your business?
Yeah, corporate office is in Houston, Texas. You can actually go to beneloyalhealth.com to view the website. We are a benefits tech company as well as a benefits agency. So, I mean, one of our things that we like to do is kind of what we just talked about earlier, is partner with everyone and anyone that actually is trying to better themselves, because in so doing, we know we'll actually be better ourselves as well. So you can reach out to us there, or you can actually send me an email at ccarter@beneloyalhealth.com, or reach out via phone, 281-752-6034.
Awesome. Yeah, make sure to check them out. BeneloyalHealth.com. Check them out. Chris, great job, man. Appreciate the time today. And as always, make sure to find us, HRO and the Broker Collective. You can always find us at brokercollective.xyz. Make sure to catch up with us on Facebook. We're starting to do a lot more live streams, and we'll be bringing some interesting information and folks like Chris on those live streams as well, just to kind of share their wisdom and hopefully give you guys some resources and knowledge to grow your agencies. But thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to connect with us on all the social platforms and be on the lookout for the next podcast, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys.